And now we talk about Wendell Moore, the 6'5". He was a junior at Duke, 217 pounds, 7-foot wingspan. He's going to be just about 21 at the time of the draft. Went to Duke, like I said. The one-sentence descriptor on him is a playmaking wing who got off to a slow start in college, but has emerged as a do-it-all player in his junior season who could fill a number of different roles in the NBA.
Yeah, so you look at his role in this Duke team. Like, he played on this stacked team.
Yeah.
We're talking about Paolo, top 3 pick. Should be number 1 pick, by the way. Is that a little spicy? I think he should be. But
I think Raphael agrees with you, too.
Mark Williams, AJ Griffin. I mean, even Keel stayed in the draft. Like, this Duke team has a potential that we look back on and say, holy crap, how'd they not win the national title?
How did they not win?
Like, it could be a special class for them. But he ran a lot of their point. You know, like you said, he's 6'5", 7-foot wingspan. When you look at the difference between height and wingspan at the combine, he was like a top 5 player in the difference of that.
Yeah.
And we love those type of players.
Rectangles. Let's go.
Rectangles.
We should do a draft, draft phrases. Every time we say one of them, we should ding.
The rectangle.
Rangy.
High motor. He was on an ACC all defensive team. He is the definition of a 3&D guy. Like you said, he's 20. He's about to turn 21 right after the draft. He's 20 right now, a junior. So a little bit, vet as far as in college standards. Okay. His first, well, I say because not a ton of players are entering this draft after junior year. So you start looking at upperclassmen.
Yeah, no, it just took him a while to get going in college, right? It's hard to break. It's hard to break into that Duke rotation, and he finally did the last couple of years, and then really had a huge role this past year. And also the shot had to improve, right? A couple of things, if you want to talk about strengths and weaknesses, is that he shot really well, 41.3% from 3 last year, but the year before that he shot 30%, and the year before that I think he didn't even take 1 3 a game and shot like 20%. So he's raised the bar and got better as a 3-point shooter, but he had to get better. So that's definitely something of note, because it could take him another learning curve in the NBA when he comes in. But yeah, the other thing is, I think Richard, Mavs Draft, came on this podcast and talked about him and said, oh man, he's the best cutter I think I've ever seen as a prospect.
Unbelievable.
That's a skill that I think the Mavericks can definitely use. And he's got a pretty good handle, can finish at the rim a little bit, but the cutting, the spot up shooting, he's just an ideal off-ball player on offense.
Yeah, and I mean that's what he had to be at Duke, and that's one of his strengths, especially when you look at a potential fit in Dallas, is he knows how to play off the ball. He was in the 94th percentile of cutting as far as points per possession on synergy in college basketball. He was talking about the improved shot. He shot over 40% this season at Duke. He shot over 42% in the ACC tournament and in the tournament in which they made their deep run on. So he's improved a lot. So one of the bigger questions is that real? Because it is one season. The year before that, like you said, he attempted 3 a game, just like this year, and he shot at 30%. So that's the thing with him. Even on spot up shooting, 92nd percentile on spot up shots on synergy. Like, he really improved shooting the basketball this year, and he's already really good defensively, especially with the long wingspan. He can guard multiple defenders. So, but I do want to say this. Also don't want to kind of just put him in the box of a 3&D guy, because he can handle the ball. Yeah. And that's why I don't like some of the comps that have been thrown out for him, because even I think, the Ringer had Josh Green.
I was going to talk about it.
But I lean towards more of a, and this isn't a perfect comp, but I lean towards more of like a Brogdon, in the sense of, He's that size. He's
same
like 6'5",
size and
6'6".
wingspan. Yeah,
he can wingspan. He's a good outside shooter. He can defend, but he can also he ran a lot of the offense. He initiated the offense at Duke. He was running pick and roll. He was I prefer leaning towards that type of route, like sealing a Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart handles the ball and stuff some, but I don't like just the 3&D label for him, because he's not Dorian Finney-Smith when he first entered the league, and he can't dribble, and he's just in the corner and is like, hey, let me shoot the shot. I'm good at that. He can drive right now. He's better at driving and playmaking right now than Dorian Finney-Smith is right now.
Yeah, probably.
At just driving and playmaking, not overall player, but just driving, to show you that he is already there he can handle the ball.
Yeah. He's not going to be your go-to offensive initiator though. He's not going to be that kind of guy. He's not even necessary. You're not probably even going to draw up plays for him to do that kind of stuff. So if you're talking about some weaknesses, those are things. He's not going to hit shots off the bounce. He's not going to like drive through traffic and finish around guys like that. That's not what he's going to, but he can do those things if the defense shifts over to the other side and he's able to take advantage in that way, in the way that the Mavs have tried to ask Dorian to do this past year and things like that.
One of the issues with this past Mavs team, what happened a lot with shot clocks is Luka would drive, he doesn't get the shot. So what happens? He kicks it out to Reggie or Dorian or somebody else, or let's say Maxi's out there. Well, none of those three can run pick and roll or dribble. So then it's like, hey, we're just going to play hot potato around the perimeter until Luka comes back and gets the ball. And there's like 6 seconds left on the shot clock and he's launching it up. This is the situation where if Wendell Moore is out there, he can call for the pick and actually handle the ball and move a little bit. Like he's not your number 1 or number 2 option, but he can already be a 3&D guy who can put the ball on the floor.
Availability. He is kind of all over the place. Raphael had him at 28 on his big board. The Ringer had him at 35. ESPN mocked him at 37, and The Athletic had him at 37.
Yeah.
They're all pretty low on him, except for Raphael, who thinks he's a first rounder. So really, really interesting. He'll probably be available there for the Mavericks, and so this is definitely a player the Mavericks will probably have to think about and decide, do we want to take him at 26?
Because you ask yourself, he's going to be 21, so as much as I hate that whole age thing, but like if you're a team down there, it's like, oh, do I swing for a 19-year-old? Do I swing for a 21-year-old? Basically, the age stuff, the athlete stuff. He's not, jumping up and doing windmill 360s. He's not the, insane athlete. And if you don't believe that the shooting is sustainable, like those are a few of the reasons. I feel like some people could listen to what we just said and be like, oh man, he's like perfect 3&D guy. It's like, well, here's a couple reasons why he could be in the 30s.
Yeah, and we still have to see if the shot is real, right? He shot 30% his sophomore year, 40% last year. So another thing I wanted to say earlier about 3-point shooting in college is that the sample size is so much smaller. It's like a third of what it is in the NBA, or probably even less, because they play less minutes and they play way less games. They play 34 games instead of 82 games. So just the difference between that, a 40% shooter in the NBA is completely different than a 40% shooter in college. That's like, Reggie Bullock had like 3 different college seasons this year in the NBA, where he was terrible his first year, and then he was incredible at the end of the season for the Mavericks just this year. And so that's something to take into account. I don't know if that's positive or negative. Is it positive that okay, well, he shot 30% last year, but that's a small sample size too. So maybe he's a better shooter than that season counted for. It's just interesting to look at. But
I will say he's shot above 80% from the free throw line all 3 seasons. And for a lot of people to talk about shooting stuff, that is one of those indicators of, hey, can you be a good, sustainable 3-point shooter moving forward? And it's like, yeah, he shot 80, 84%, and 80% in his 3 years.
Why the Mavs should and shouldn't take him? I have the same sentence written.
For both?
And you're not going to like it already. Do you want another chance at Josh Green, but a year and a half older at the time of drafting? That's why you should and shouldn't take him. Because everything we talked about with Josh Green, plus a little bit more with the ball handling, is what Wendell Moore did, right, in his college. And he's a year and a half older than Josh Green was when they drafted him. And so you're getting the same chance at the same type of player again. It's just he may be a little bit better in certain areas the Mavs need.
I think he's not the exact same mold as Josh Green, though.
Just almost. I mean, what's the difference? It's just the ball handling and
he can handle the ball. Yeah, I believe in his shooting and his shooting form more than Josh Green's shooting form. I think Josh Green's a better passer. You could probably say Josh Green's a better athlete, but I think
Wendell Moore has a 7-foot wingspan and Josh Green was only like 6'9". So
yeah, but I think Wendell Moore is the better prospect right now. I think next year, if you're saying, all right, if these 2 dudes went into camp, I think I would say that Wendell Moore would come out of that on top.
Right now. Yeah. So you get another, but that's what I'm saying. You get another chance at the type of player that you wanted with Josh Green, and you get to try it
again. And that's what you want. Like, we want another wing. Like, we want a wing in this rotation. Like, you're taking a swing at this spot, and the swing that you're going to take, if you're going to swing for a wing, is most likely going to be a 3&D guy that you want Josh Green to be. And you know what? If you do swing for it, and they both work out, Awesome.
Great.
Now you got a couple of dudes. You can never have enough, because that's what I put down. Why should the Mavs draft him? I say you can never have enough of these guys in the playoffs. A 3&D wing who can make plays off the dribble. And it's like, yeah, if it works out, then great. He's coming off the bench, backing up Reggie and Dorian. And why you don't do it though? The only reason why I would say you don't draft Wendell Moore at 26, besides like, oh, there's somebody else that fell and like, let's take him, whatever, is if you don't believe the shooting is real. Because if he can't shoot, then I'm sorry. Like, it's not like he's Kawhi Leonard and he's like, dude, you're just going to lock everybody up. He's a good defender, but it's not like he's winning Defensive Player of the Year. So that if you don't believe in the shooting, you don't draft him. But if you think it's real, the 42%, then I'm all about, I love Wendell Moore. I think I think in a way, he's kind of like a weird wing version of a Jalen Brunson type, the upperclassman, not the extreme athlete type of guy, but super smart. And that's typically like, if Donnie Nelson was still GM, I'd be like, dude, this is his pick right here. Like this is him. And Finn still has a lot to do with draft. Like, true. We talked to
Michael
Nico
and
talked to Nico there in the Bay when we had him on the podcast there and asked him about the draft. And he's like, yeah, I mean, Finley's, at the combine right now. Finn's been running the stuff. So Finn's going to have a say. So Brunson was Finn's guy. Like, Finn loved Jalen Brunson and stuff coming to the draft. So it would not shock me if Wendell Moore, had Dallas across his chest next year.
That'd be exciting. I think I would be down for that after everything I just saw and everything I just said. I played the heel a little bit in this profile, but
you say Keel? That's his teammate.
There you go. That's Wendell Moore. We talked about Jaden Hardy. Guys, thanks so much for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Check out Locked On NBA Big Board next. They got great stuff all the time. Did you see that quote that the Western Conference executive said about Shaedon Sharpe? Like, how dare anybody pick him in the top 5? Did you see that quote today?
David Aldridge?
Yeah, David Aldridge. Raphael had that 3 weeks ago on the podcast. He had that almost the exact same quote from maybe the same guy, but from somebody. So he's locked in. He's got a bunch of sources. Check out Locked On NBA Big Board for all your draft stuff, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!